Rancher buys a cheap abandoned ranch, then finds an Apache girl hanged inside. Cole Turner had never been one to shy away from a challenge. He had spent most of his life working small ranches, fixing fences, and raising cattle across the hot, dry plains. But this time he wanted something different, something bigger. When he first saw the listing for the old Whitehorn Ranch, he had to laugh. A sprawling property of nearly 500 acres, a main house that had clearly seen better days, and a barn that looked like it might collapse at any moment. And the price, almost laughably cheap. The townspeople had warned him. "That place is cursed, old mister," Harlan had said, shaking his head. "Nobody stays there for long. Strange things happen out on that land. You sure you want it?" Cole had smiled politely. He had heard these stories before. People like to scare outsiders. There was no such thing as ghosts, curses, or haunted ranches, not in his world. He believed in hard work, patience, and grit. That was enough to survive anywhere. So early one bright morning, Cole drove his old pickup down the winding dirt road that led to the Whitehorn Ranch. The sun was high and the desert air shimmered with heat. The property looked even more desolate in person. The grass was dry and brittle, the fences sagging, and the barn leaning slightly to one side. A tumbleweed rolled lazily across the dirt driveway, brushing against the tires of his truck. He stepped out and took a deep breath. The air smelled faintly of dust and old wood. Something about the ranch felt quiet, too quiet. No birds sang. No wind rattled the broken shutters. Even the usual creaks of a wooden building seemed absent. Cole shook his head. "Just an old ranch," he muttered. "Needs fixing, nothing more." He began inspecting the main house first. The front porch sagged under years of neglect, and the paint had peeled almost entirely away. Inside, the house was coated in a thick layer of dust. Cobwebs hung in corners, and the floorboards creaked dangerously under his weight. But as he explored, he noticed signs of life, or at least evidence that someone had been here recently. Footprints in the dust, a broken chair tipped over, and faint scratches along the walls. Strangers might have passed through, Cole guessed, brushing off the unease creeping up his spine. He didn't want to admit it, but the ranch gave him an odd feeling. Something about it felt alive, as if it were watching him. Next, he approached the barn. Its doors hung crooked on rusty hinges, but with some effort he managed to push them open. The smell hit him immediately, old hay, mildew, and something else he couldn't identify. The inside was dark, dusty, and cavernous. Sunlight streamed through gaps in the walls, making dancing stripes of light across the dirt floor. Cole ran his hand over the rough wood of a support beam and froze. Strange symbols were etched into the wood, barely visible under the grime. Lines and shapes that didn't make sense to him, yet somehow seemed familiar, as if they belonged to a language long forgotten. He frowned. "Weird, maybe just old carvings from the previous owners," he said aloud. But his voice sounded hollow in the empty barn. That night, he set up a small camp in the living room. The electricity wasn't working, so he relied on a few old lanterns he brought with him. As he sat on a dusty couch, a book in hand to keep his mind busy, he felt the first real wave of unease. A soft, scratching sound came from the walls, then a whispering noise almost too faint to hear. He froze, listening. "Must be the wind," he muttered, even as the whispers seemed to mimic the cadence of a human voice. Sleep came reluctantly. He dreamed of a girl, long hair black as midnight, standing silently in the barn. She wore traditional clothing, patterned with symbols that matched the ones he had seen carved into the wood. In his dream, her eyes were wide and pleading, and she reached for him without speaking. He woke with a start, sweat beading on his forehead. The next morning, Cole explored the outskirts of the property. There was a small creek nearby, overgrown with weeds and fallen branches. The dry desert landscape stretched for miles in every direction, barren but striking in its beauty. As he walked, he found pieces of pottery, fragments of arrowheads, and other artifacts hidden among the rocks and sand. He realized something. This ranch had history. Not just ordinary history, but old history, maybe centuries old. His curiosity grew stronger. Whoever had lived here before had left marks that refused to be ignored. By the third day, Cole was hard at work repairing fences and clearing brush. He discovered a section of the barn floor that sounded hollow under his feet. Kneeling, he began prying at the wooden boards and revealed a trapdoor. He hesitated for a moment, feeling that same prickling sensation he had felt since arriving. But curiosity won over caution. He opened it. Below was a narrow stairway leading into darkness. Dust and the smell of old earth wafted up. He grabbed a lantern and climbed down. At the bottom, he found a small room. Old tools and broken furniture were scattered across the floor. And then he saw it, something he could not have anticipated. A figure suspended from the ceiling. Cole's heart froze. The shape was human, small, clearly a girl. But she was not alive, not in the way anyone living was. The sight was shocking, yet strangely still. It was as if time had stopped for her. He stepped closer, careful not to touch anything. Around her were more symbols, drawn in dust and scratches on the walls. His mind raced. Who was she? And why was she here? Cole's first instinct was fear, but that fear quickly turned to resolve. He had seen strange things before, but he did not run. He had to understand. Whoever had done this, whoever she had been, their story mattered. The ranch was more than just land. It held secrets waiting to be discovered. Over the next few days, Cole spent hours studying the room. He found remnants of clothing, pieces of jewelry, and tools unlike any he had seen. They were delicate and intricately made, suggesting skill and intelligence. And then he noticed faint impressions on the walls, almost like instructions or a map, hidden in plain sight. The more he looked, the more he realized this was not just a crime or tragedy. It was something older, something tied to the land itself. Whoever she was, she had left traces of knowledge, skills, and maybe even technology that had been forgotten over the years. At night, he continued to hear whispers and soft noises. But now, instead of fear, he felt guided as if someone or something was showing him where to look. The ranch, once desolate and empty, began to feel alive. It was no longer just a property to fix and run. It was a puzzle, a story, a history waiting for him to uncover. Cole knew he had made the right choice despite the warnings. The cheap abandoned ranch was no longer just land to own. It was a challenge to understand, a legacy to honor. And deep down, he felt that the girl, whoever she had been, was counting on him to get it right. As the sun set over the desert, casting long shadows across the barn and house, Cole stood at the edge of the property. The wind whispered through the broken fences, carrying the faint smell of earth and old wood. For the first time since arriving, he smiled. Whatever mysteries the Whitehorn Ranch held, he would face them, and he would not fail. Because on this ranch, humanity was about to meet history, and survival, ingenuity, and courage would define the story that was about to unfold. Cole Turner had spent the first few days exploring every corner of the Whitehorn Ranch. Yet the discovery of the hidden room in the barn and the girl who hung silently inside it lingered in his mind like a shadow he could not shake. Each morning, the desert sun burned the earth with its relentless heat, but inside Cole, curiosity blazed even brighter. He needed answers. The girl, whose presence seemed both real and unreal, had something about her that was impossible to ignore. Her small frame hung motionless, yet there was a sense of purpose in her stillness. Around her were objects that hinted at intelligence, culture, and a story long forgotten. Broken pottery, shards of jewelry, and remnants of fine weaving suggested she had belonged to a people with knowledge and skill. Cole had grown up learning the value of hard work and practical knowledge, but this was different. This was history, history wrapped in mystery, and he intended to uncover it. He started with the room itself. The walls, marked with symbols and patterns, seemed to tell a story. At first, the etchings were meaningless to him, lines and curves tangled in ways that made no sense. But as he traced them with his fingers, he realized that some symbols repeated, some lines connected to others like a map. Slowly, a picture emerged, a story of a people who had lived on this land long before it became his ranch. One symbol looked like a water source, another resembled a hidden passage. Some markings even suggested tools or devices. Cole's mind raced. Whoever had created these had been brilliant. Not only had they survived in this harsh desert, but they had also invented ways to manipulate it, to control the land and protect themselves. Cole's nights became restless. He could not stop thinking about the girl. He decided to name her Ahuli, a name that had echoed in his dreams since the first night. He did not know if it was her real name, but it felt right. Every night, as he sat near the barn with a lantern, the desert seemed alive with whispers. At first, he feared he was imagining it, but the whispers were consistent, rhythmic, almost guiding. They led him to small discoveries, a hidden drawer in a wooden chest, a trapdoor beneath the hay, a small cavity in the wall. In each, he found items that were strange but functional. A carved stone, smooth and round, seemed to be a weight for a mechanism. a set of small gears made of a metal unfamiliar to him, delicate but strong. One evening, after hours of searching, Cole discovered a small notebook tucked carefully in the corner of the room. Its pages were fragile, yellowed with age, and filled with symbols, sketches, and diagrams. At first, the handwriting seemed impossible to read. But slowly, patterns emerged. The notebook described ways to manipulate water sources, to divert it from the desert into hidden channels. It detailed traps and defenses designed to protect the land and its people. And there were sketches of structures that could survive the harshest storms, with mechanisms that functioned almost automatically. Cole could hardly believe it. These were not just the works of any people, they were the works of someone brilliant, someone who had understood the desert in ways modern science was only beginning to discover. He realized something else. The girl Ahuli had been part of this knowledge. Perhaps she had been a protector of these secrets. Perhaps she had been chosen to guard the land, and even in death her presence remained. As days turned into nights, Cole felt an odd connection to Ahuli. He spoke to her aloud sometimes, explaining his discoveries, asking questions. "I'm going to understand this," he said one night. "I'm going to make this ranch live again, and I'll honor your work." The desert seemed to respond. On nights when he felt frustrated, when answers seemed out of reach, a soft gust of wind would stir the symbols on the walls, as if pointing him in the right direction. One morning he found the hidden water channel partially uncovered, just as the notebook had described. Following the instructions, he managed to divert water from the distant creek to a dry section of the ranch. For the first time in years, the land seemed to respond. Small sprouts of green pushed through the dry earth. Cole realized then that the ranch itself was more than just land. It was a system, a living environment built to survive, and he was beginning to understand it. But the discovery also brought questions. Who had Ahuli been? Why had she died? And who else had known about these secrets? The thought made him uneasy. The notebook mentioned others, rival groups who had tried to claim the land, who had fought to control its resources and knowledge. Perhaps that was why the ranch had been abandoned. Determined to find answers, Cole reached out to the nearby town. He found Dr. Maria Lontree, a local historian and archaeologist who specialized in Apache history. When he showed her the notebook, the artifacts, and the symbols, her eyes widened. This is incredible," she said softly. "These markings are Apache in origin, but they're not just traditional. They show knowledge far beyond what anyone thought existed. Look at these mechanisms, their engineering almost scientific in nature." Cole nodded. "And this girl, Ahuli, she was part of it. I think she was meant to protect the ranch, the land, and all this knowledge." Maria frowned. "It's possible. Many Apache legends speak of guardians, chosen individuals who protect sacred places. But this is real. These people were clever. They knew the land better than anyone, and they left instructions for someone to continue their work." Cole felt a surge of determination. The ranch was no longer just a property he had bought. It was a responsibility, a puzzle, and a legacy all in one. Over the next week, Cole focused on uncovering more of the ranch's secrets. He explored hidden tunnels beneath the barn, finding small rooms filled with tools, food stores, and even primitive machinery. The systems were sophisticated: water channels, hidden locks, and protective barriers. One evening, while working in the barn, he noticed something unusual. The shadows cast by his lantern seemed to form shapes, patterns that aligned with the symbols on the walls. Following them, he found a small compartment hidden behind a loose wooden panel. Inside was a set of gears, carefully arranged, and a series of rods that seemed to connect to other parts of the barn. Cole studied them for hours. Slowly, he began to understand their purpose. The gears and rods controlled a series of levers that could close hidden doors, block entrances, or even create alarms for intruders. Whoever had designed this system had combined intelligence, ingenuity, and knowledge of the land to make the ranch almost self-protecting. Night after night, Cole worked tirelessly. Sleep came in short bursts, but he didn't mind. Every discovery felt like a step closer to understanding Ahuli, the ranch, and the legacy of the people who had once called this place home. But the work was not without danger. On several occasions, he felt he was being watched. Small disturbances, tools slightly moved, footprints in dust that weren't his own, kept him alert. Yet he also felt a sense of guidance, as if Ahuli herself was helping him navigate the ranch, pointing out what needed attention. Cole realized that the ranch was teaching him, testing him and preparing him. If he could master its systems, he could not only survive but thrive. He could restore life to this abandoned land, honor its history, and prove that humans with intelligence and perseverance could overcome even the most daunting challenges. One morning, after weeks of work, Cole stood in the barn, surveying the land outside. The sun cast long shadows across the desert, highlighting the small patches of green he had managed to nurture. Water flowed through the hidden channels, feeding dry soil and giving life to new plants. The barn, once dark and lifeless, now felt alive, humming with mechanisms and secrets that only he and Ahuli knew. He looked at the room where Ahuli had hung, silent and still. "I'm getting there," he whispered. "I'll make sure your work is honored. I'll protect this land." And somewhere, deep in the whispering wind, it felt as though the girl was listening. The Whitehorn Ranch, once abandoned and forgotten, was beginning to awaken. Cole Turner had spent weeks at the Whitehorn Ranch, uncovering hidden rooms, deciphering strange symbols, and exploring tunnels that led to forgotten places beneath the barn. Each day, the land revealed more of its secrets. Each night, the whispers in the wind seemed to guide him toward the next discovery. But Cole knew he needed help. The knowledge left behind by Ahuli, the Apache girl he had named in his mind, was extraordinary. It was clever, intricate, and precise. Cole was skilled with tools, fences, and cattle, but he was not a historian or an archaeologist. He needed someone who could explain the culture, the people, and the technology woven into the land. He remembered the conversation with Dr. Maria Lonetree, the historian he had met in the nearby town. Maria had expertise in Apache history and a fascination with old technology. She had seen his findings before and had been amazed by the sophistication of the systems hidden in the ranch. Cole called her one morning. "Maria, I think you need to come out here. It's more than history. This ranch, it's alive. There are mechanisms, channels, and systems I've barely understood. And I think they were all part of a plan by the people who lived here, Ahuli's people." By noon, Maria arrived, her jeep kicking up dust as she approached. She was mid-40s with a sharp, curious mind and eyes that seemed to notice details most people missed. She stepped out and looked at the ranch with both awe and concern. "This place, it's remarkable," she said, her voice low. "I can see why you were drawn here, but I need to warn you what you found isn't just relics, it's knowledge, and knowledge has consequences." Cole nodded. "I know, I'm ready for it." Maria followed him into the barn. The hidden room still held Ahuli's presence, though the girl herself was long gone. Cole explained everything he had discovered: the notebooks, the carved symbols, the water channels, and the gears that controlled the barn's hidden mechanisms. Maria knelt by the notebooks, brushing off dust. "These diagrams are advanced," she said. "I've studied Apache tools, engineering, and art, but this goes beyond traditional understanding. Whoever created these systems knew the land intimately. They used human ingenuity to survive harsh conditions, control resources, and protect themselves. It's brilliant." Cole watched her carefully. "So you think Ahuli wasn't just a victim? She was part of it?" Maria nodded slowly. "Yes. She may have been a guardian or apprentice, someone entrusted with protecting these secrets. And judging by the symbols here, she probably understood how the systems worked, maybe even better than most adults of her time." Cole's chest tightened. He had felt a connection to Ahuli since the first day, but hearing Maria say it out loud made it real. He wasn't just restoring an abandoned ranch. He was continuing the work of someone remarkable, someone who had fought to survive and protect her people. Over the next days, Cole and Maria worked together, exploring deeper parts of the ranch. They found tunnels connecting the barn to areas outside the main house. Some led to small wells, cleverly hidden among the rocks and brush. Others led to dry pits that seemed to serve as reservoirs for water. Every mechanism had a purpose, every symbol a meaning. One afternoon, as they examined a complex system of gears and rods in the barn, Maria said, "Look at this. The gears are designed to rotate water channels. They direct water where it's needed most, but also create a protective barrier. If someone tries to tamper with it, the system will alert the rancher, maybe even trigger traps." Cole's eyebrows rose. "Traps?" Maria smiled faintly. "Not deadly, but defensive. Clever humans can protect themselves without violence. Ahuli's people understood that. They used brains, not brute force, to survive in a dangerous environment." Cole felt a surge of pride. This was the kind of ingenuity he respected. humans using intelligence, observation, and creativity to thrive. Even centuries later it worked. That night, as Cole sat by the barn, he listened to the wind brushing through the broken windows. The whispers had returned, soft and almost musical. He imagined Ahuli guiding his hands, pointing out what needed attention. He touched the symbols on the wall, following the lines as if reading a story in a language older than the land itself. Suddenly a sound startled him, a soft click like metal moving against metal. The barn door shifted slightly, revealing a hidden compartment he had never noticed before. Heart racing, Cole knelt and opened it. Inside was a small chest, carefully locked with a wooden mechanism. Using the diagrams he had studied with Maria, Cole carefully worked the gears and rods, releasing the lock. The chest contained more artifacts, a bundle of carefully woven cloth, small carved tools, and what looked like a wooden map of the ranch and surrounding land. Each detail was precise, every symbol and mark had meaning. "This is incredible," Cole whispered. "It's like she left instructions for me." Maria examined the items. She did. Whoever she was, she wanted someone to continue the work. She left a legacy, and now it's in your hands. Cole felt both awe and responsibility. He had always cared for the land, but this was different. The ranch was not just land to cultivate or cattle to raise. It was a living system, a story, and a challenge. And he was now part of it. In the following days, Cole began experimenting with the artifacts and mechanisms. He diverted water to the driest parts of the ranch, guided by the lines on the maps and the diagrams in the notebooks. He repaired hidden levers and gears in the barn that had been dormant for decades. Slowly, the land began to respond. Small shoots of grass emerged from the desert floor. The creek's water flowed more efficiently through channels, nourishing patches of earth that had long been barren. Cole felt a sense of wonder. This was not magic. This was human knowledge applied with skill and patience. Ahuli's genius, combined with his own hard work, was breathing life back into the ranch. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Maria and Cole sat outside the barn. The desert sky was painted in orange and purple, and the wind carried the faint scent of earth and grass. "You know," Maria said, "this is what humanity is about. Survival, intelligence, adaptation. These people were not just surviving, they were thriving. They left knowledge behind and you're continuing it. That's extraordinary," Cole smiled. "It feels right, like I'm doing more than just restoring a ranch. I'm honoring someone, learning from someone who was brilliant, and maybe proving that humans can rise above even the hardest conditions." Maria nodded. "Exactly. This is the heart of human achievement. Using brains, patience, and courage to survive and improve the world around you. That's what you're seeing here." Over the next week, Cole continued his work, becoming more attuned to the ranch's hidden systems. He discovered that some mechanisms served multiple purposes, diverting water while also alerting him to changes in the environment. Others controlled hidden doors and passageways that could be used for storage or shelter. But with each discovery came a growing awareness of responsibility. The ranch was more than a place to live. It was a living legacy. If Cole failed to understand its systems, the knowledge could be lost forever. He felt Ahuli's presence in subtle ways. The flicker of lantern light across a symbol, the soft sound of wind through a hidden passage, the sudden shift of dust revealing a hidden gear. It was as if she were guiding him, helping him understand her work, and teaching him the value of patience, intelligence, and careful observation. Cole realized that the ranch had chosen him, just as Ahuli had hoped. It was not just about survival. It was about human ingenuity, respect for knowledge, and the courage to face challenges. As he walked across the land that evening, watching the first green shoots emerge from dry soil, Cole felt a sense of purpose stronger than ever. He was not just a rancher. He was a guardian, a learner, and a continuator of a story older than the land itself. And somewhere in the whispering wind and the quiet movement of gears beneath the barn, he imagined Ahuli smiling. She had left her legacy, and now it was in capable hands. The Whitehorn Ranch was no longer abandoned. It was awakening, and Cole Turner was ready to meet whatever challenges lay ahead. The desert sun beat down on the Whitehorn Ranch, but Cole Turner hardly noticed. For weeks, he had worked tirelessly, repairing fences, restoring water channels, and deciphering the intricate systems left behind by Ahuli and her people. The ranch was no longer just abandoned land. It was alive with potential. Grass was sprouting in once barren soil, small streams of water flowed through hidden channels, and the barn's mechanisms hummed quietly, ready for action. Cole felt a sense of pride, but also vigilance. The deeper he delved into the ranch's secrets, the more he realized that knowledge this valuable would not stay hidden forever. He was right. Late one afternoon, while checking a newly repaired water gate, he noticed a group of vehicles on the horizon, kicking up dust as they approached the ranch. At first, he thought they might be neighbors or townspeople, curious about his progress. But as they drew closer, he recognized the signs. These were outsiders, not local residents. Their movements were purposeful, and the vehicles carried equipment far too large and organized to belong to casual visitors. Cole's heart pounded. He remembered Maria's warning. Knowledge like this could attract unwanted attention. Whoever these people were, they weren't here to admire the land, they were here to claim it. He ran to the barn, checking the hidden mechanisms he had restored. Levers, gears, and rods all connected to a network of doors, channels, and traps designed to protect the ranch. Cole had studied them carefully, but he had never tested them under pressure. Today, he would have to. As the first outsiders reached the perimeter, Cole activated the barn systems. Hidden doors closed silently, channels shifted to redirect water away from vulnerable areas, and subtle alarms, metal rods clanging softly against hidden walls, warned him of intrusions. The ranch itself seemed to respond to his command, almost like it knew he was its protector. Cole crouched behind a pile of hay, watching as the intruders split into groups, trying to navigate the property. He could see their confusion. The ranch's design, created centuries earlier, made it almost impossible to approach without understanding the hidden pathways and mechanisms. Maria had arrived earlier that day and now joined him in the barn. "Cole, these systems, you've brought them back to life just in time," she whispered. "If you hadn't restored the mechanisms, they could have reached the inner areas undetected." Cole nodded. "They won't get in, not while I'm here." The intruders fanned out, moving cautiously. Cole watched as one of them stepped near a hidden channel. Instantly, a small lever triggered, releasing a controlled flow of water that forced him back. Another approached a door he thought was solid, but a hidden gear rotated, shifting the door slightly and causing him to stumble. Cole smiled quietly. Human ingenuity from centuries past was holding firm, yet the intruders were persistent. They regrouped, trying different angles, but every time the ranch anticipated their moves. Tools would clatter in hidden compartments, gates would shift subtly, and water channels created barriers that slowed their progress. It was as if the ranch itself was alive, responding to its defender. Hours passed. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the desert. The intruders, frustrated and exhausted, finally paused. Cole realized this was his chance. Using the barn's mechanisms, he opened a hidden path behind the storage area, allowing him to move quietly and outflank them. He emerged from the shadows, careful to remain unseen. Using knowledge from Ahulai's notebooks, he manipulated levers that caused distractions. A series of pulleys dropped tools to create noise, while hidden doors shifted to confuse the intruders. Their movements became chaotic, disorganized, and ultimately ineffective. Maria watched, amazed. "Cole, this is incredible. The ranch is working with you. It's almost intelligent." Cole grinned. "It's not magic, it's human ingenuity. Brains over brawn, that's what Ahulai built, and now I get to use it." The intruders, realizing they were outmatched, finally retreated. Dust rose into the twilight as they scrambled into their vehicles and disappeared over the horizon. Cole and Maria watched silently, the ranch falling quiet once again. Cole leaned against a support beam, catching his breath. "They'll be back," he said. "Knowledge this valuable doesn't stay hidden forever, but now I know I can defend it." Maria nodded. "You've proven that human intelligence and perseverance are more powerful than brute force. You've taken the past and used it to protect the present." The night that followed was calm, but Cole did not sleep easily. He patrolled the ranch, checking every channel, every hidden door, and every mechanism. Each movement, each adjustment reminded him that the ranch was alive, but only because he cared for it. Neglect it, and it would be vulnerable. Respect it, and it would protect him. In the early hours, he sat in the barn thinking about Ahulai. Though she had long passed, her presence was still guiding him. Every mechanism, every symbol, every design choice reflected her intelligence, her foresight, and her understanding of human ingenuity. Cole realized that this ranch was not just about survival. It was about thriving, about building systems that allowed humans to rise above challenges and protect what mattered most. The following days were spent fortifying the ranch even further. Cole worked tirelessly, repairing fences, improving water channels, and enhancing hidden pathways. He also documented everything, creating a new set of instructions that combined Ahulai's original designs with his own modifications. Maria helped him understand the cultural significance of each artifact, explaining that Ahulai and her people had used intelligence, observation, and careful planning to survive the harsh desert. They didn't rely on brute force, she said. They relied on thinking ahead, using the land to their advantage, and working together. That's the essence of human achievement. Cole thought about the intruders and how quickly the ranch had protected him. It was a lesson in both humility and capability. Even in the most difficult circumstances, humans could design systems, learn from history, and apply knowledge to overcome obstacles. By the end of the week, the ranch was fully operational. Water flowed freely through hidden channels, fences were repaired, and mechanisms were ready for any threat. Cole stood on a small hill overlooking the property, the desert stretching out for miles beyond. He felt a profound connection to Ahulai and her people. Their ingenuity, their wisdom, and their courage were now part of his life. Maria joined him, handing him a cup of coffee. "You've done more than I imagined," she said. "You've taken knowledge that was almost lost and turned it into something living." The ranch is thriving because of human effort, curiosity, and respect for the past. Cole smiled, feeling a rare sense of peace. "It's not just about keeping the intruders away," he said. "It's about understanding, learning, and applying knowledge. That's what makes humans strong. That's what Ahulai wanted me to see." As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the ranch, Cole realized that he had grown, not just as a rancher, but as a protector of history and human ingenuity. The Whitehorn Ranch was no longer abandoned, and it was no longer just land. It was a living testament to the power of intelligence, perseverance, and respect for the past. And though challenges would come again, Cole knew he was ready. The ranch had chosen him, and he had chosen to rise to the occasion. Together, they would protect the land, honor Ahulai, and ensure that human ingenuity could overcome any threat. The desert night was quiet, but the ranch hummed softly with life. Hidden channels whispered in the wind, mechanisms waited in silence, and the legacy of Ahulai guided Cole as he prepared for whatever the future might bring. For the first time, Cole understood something important. The true power of humanity was not in strength alone, but in intelligence, creativity, and the courage to use knowledge wisely. And on this ranch, that power was alive. The sun rose slowly over the Whitehorn Ranch, painting the desert with shades of gold and amber. Cole Turner stood on a hill, surveying the land he had come to know so intimately. What had once been a neglected, abandoned property was now alive. Water channels glimmered in the morning light, new plants had taken root in the fertile patches, and the barn, once dark and crumbling, was fully restored, its hidden mechanisms ready to defend and sustain the ranch. Cole's journey had been long. From the first day he discovered Ahulai's hidden room in the barn to the days spent deciphering her notebooks, the ranch had tested his patience, his intelligence, and his resolve. Every discovery had strengthened his belief in the ingenuity of humans, both past and present. And now, after months of labor, the Whitehorn Ranch was more than a piece of land. It was a living system, a monument to human perseverance and creativity. Maria Lontree arrived just after sunrise, carrying a small basket of supplies for breakfast. She had been helping Cole integrate the old systems with new farming techniques, combining history with modern efficiency. She smiled as she looked over the ranch. "You've done it, Cole," she said. "The land is thriving, the systems are working perfectly, and the ranch feels alive. I can almost sense Ahulai here with us." Cole nodded, smiling. "It feels like she is. Like she left everything for someone who would understand it, and now we're the ones keeping it alive." They walked down to the barn, where Cole had set up the main control points for the hidden mechanisms. Small levers and rods controlled water flow, doors, and hidden channels across the ranch. With careful adjustments, they could ensure that every part of the land received water, shade, and protection. Cole tested one of the channels, and water flowed cleanly to a dry patch where young plants had begun to sprout. He watched the soil drink it in, feeling a quiet satisfaction. This land had been abandoned for decades, yet with intelligence, planning, and effort, it had come back to life. "This is amazing," Maria said. "The work Ahuli started centuries ago is being continued by you. It's proof of what humans can achieve when they combine knowledge, respect for the past, and determination." Cole smiled. "It's more than that. It's proof that even when things seem impossible, we can rise to the challenge. We just have to understand what we're working with and respect it." For weeks, the ranch continued to thrive under Cole's guidance. He restored old fences, planted crops in previously barren soil, and even started raising a small herd of cattle. The desert, once dry and unforgiving, now teemed with life in small but steady ways. The systems Ahuli had designed, combined with Cole's modern adjustments, created a self-sustaining environment. But Cole's work wasn't just about survival. He wanted the ranch to be a place of learning. He invited Maria to help document every system, every mechanism, and every method of cultivation. Together, they created a guidebook that explained how the land could be managed intelligently, respecting both natural cycles and human ingenuity. One afternoon, while reviewing the hidden tunnels beneath the barn, Cole noticed something unusual. A faint glow emanated from a corner he had inspected countless times before. Curious, he followed it and discovered a hidden compartment containing a small bundle of cloth and carved symbols. He carefully opened it and found a medallion intricately designed with patterns that matched the symbols from Ahuli's notebooks. Maria gasped softly. This is a symbol of guardianship. Whoever possessed this medallion was considered a protector of the land and its knowledge. Ahuli must have worn this." Cole held it in his hands, feeling the weight of history. He realized that the responsibility he had accepted wasn't just about running a ranch, it was about preserving a legacy. Ahuli had entrusted this land to someone who could appreciate its value, who could learn from it, and who could ensure that knowledge was never lost. The following week, Cole and Maria tested the ranch's systems under full operation. Water flowed smoothly through all channels, mechanisms in the barn functioned flawlessly, and hidden doors and pathways were fully operational. The ranch was not just surviving, it was thriving. And more importantly, it was secure. Cole knew that outsiders might still be tempted by the ranch's secrets, but he felt confident that human ingenuity and preparation were stronger than greed or brute force. The knowledge left behind by Ahuli had been designed to protect the land, and now, in Cole's hands, it worked exactly as intended. As the sun set over the desert one evening, Cole walked through the ranch, watching young plants sway in the breeze and cattle graze peacefully. He paused near the barn, reflecting on the journey that had brought him here. The land had tested him, guided him, and ultimately shaped him into something more than a rancher. It had made him a guardian, a learner, and a protector of human ingenuity. Maria joined him, holding a small notebook she had been keeping. "Cole," she said, "this isn't just a ranch anymore, it's a symbol, a reminder that humans can solve problems, protect their environment, and create systems that outlast generations. Ahuli would be proud." Cole nodded, feeling a sense of quiet pride. "I hope so. I hope she knows that her work is still making a difference, that humans can rise to challenges, respect the past, and build a future." Over the next few months, the ranch continued to flourish. Cole implemented sustainable farming practices. Using water channels and land management techniques he had learned from Ahuli's artifacts. He expanded the herd of cattle and planted orchards and vegetable patches, all designed to work with the natural flow of the desert environment. Word of the thriving ranch began to spread through the nearby town. People came to see the land, curious about its unusual productivity and the systems that seemed almost magical in their efficiency. Cole welcomed them, teaching them the principles behind Ahuli's designs and showing them how human intelligence and perseverance could transform even the harshest landscapes. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Cole stood on the hill overlooking the ranch. The wind carried the faint rustle of leaves and the soft hum of water flowing through channels beneath the surface. For a moment, he imagined Ahuli standing beside him, smiling silently, knowing that her legacy was safe. The ranch was no longer abandoned. It was a living testament to human ingenuity, courage, and respect for history. It was proof that even in the most challenging conditions, humans could rise above adversity, protect what mattered, and create something lasting and meaningful. Cole knew that challenges would come again, storms, droughts, or curious outsiders. But he also knew that the ranch, guided by knowledge and ingenuity, would endure. He had learned from Ahuli's legacy that survival was not enough. Humans could thrive, adapt, and honor the past while shaping the future. As the stars emerged in the clear desert sky, Cole felt a deep sense of peace. The land was alive, the legacy of Ahuli honored, and the promise of growth and knowledge secure. The Whitehorn Ranch was no longer just a place. It was a story of human resilience, creativity, and hope. Cole smiled, knowing that he had not only restored a ranch, but he had become part of a greater story. The story of humans rising to challenges, using intelligence and perseverance to protect and improve the world around them. And in that moment, he understood something profound. The true strength of humanity lay not in strength alone, but in wisdom, courage, and the ability to learn from those who came before. The desert wind whispered across the land, carrying a sense of approval and calm. Cole turned back toward the barn, ready to continue his work, knowing that the Whitehorn Ranch would thrive for generations to come. And somewhere in the soft rustling of the desert, he felt Ahuli's presence, watching, guiding, and smiling at the legacy she had entrusted to him. The ranch was alive, humanity had triumphed, and the story of the Whitehorn Ranch had only just begun.